So now let's go ahead and draw the interior curtain walls, or maybe it's better to say the partitions, for the ground floor of this project. As you can see over here, we've got some glass partitions, for which we're going to need to place some curtain walls. Generally, curtain walls are used for drawing these partitions. But first, let's go over to the AutoCAD plan and see what the details are that we need to consider. As you see in this Phase 1 CAD file that the client has given to us, the drawing seems very simple, only there's going to be this door that we need to place. And also, if I try to measure the distance for this part, and check for instance from here to here, we will see its thickness is 10. So there's going to be some 10 centimeter thick partitions. So now we could very easily go ahead and place some 10 centimeter thick partitions over here. And we're going to make them of the glass type, give them some mullions. And also we're going to need to place the door panels for here, followed by the actual door family that we will be placing later. But there's one thing that we're missing, which is the detail of these partitions. This one right here is a Phase 1 plan, and therefore we can't see any details for this area. We should either be given the details file, or we might have to directly ask the client what details should be considered for this. Because it's really not as simple as it seems, as we will be needing the glass thickness, the horizontal and vertical perspectives, so we could use for help. Now for this current project, we were given a details file, which is for the business units. So this one has some windows and glass partitions that are needed for the business units, and the client gave us the details so we would know what needs to be done. But what we can see in the ground floor plan is more of a service unit. Based on this code, which is GF01, if we go over to the legend plan and find set code, we can see that it also says for the service units. So this one isn't a business unit for which we could use that detail. We actually had to ask the client about this, and they told us that generally we could use the same thing that we can see in this detail for the ground floor, only there's going to be some differences. For example, they said that the thickness here is 4 centimeters in total, and 1 centimeter of it goes for the glass, and the mullions should be 40 millimeters thick or 4 centimeters. So that's going to be 4 by 4. And as for some other things that we had to ask the client, because we didn't have enough information as to what needs to be done in the file that they gave to us, eventually what was decided to be done for the service areas was that from the start all the way to the end, as well as in between for the doors, was to be a vertical constraint. So like we needed to have vertical mullions, and the horizontal mullions would have to go all over the doors. That was going to be in the same size and dimensions that we talked about. So far we've got some details for this part, which is that we need to place 4 centimeter mullions. Now I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to start by drawing a curtain wall. So I'm going to choose one of these types over here. For instance, we're going to go with this storefront, which also happens to have some mullions. Now after I've selected it, I'm going to duplicate that type, and I'm going to name the duplicate Timion/partition, and this one is no longer 10 centimeters, we're going to have to make it 4. So I'm going to make this 4 centimeters, then click OK. Alright, so for now I'm going to have to place some other things, like I'm going to need to have my curtain wall first, and then go to create mullions. So I'm going to go over here, duplicate this type, and I'm going to name the duplicate, for example, mullion 4 by 4 or 40 by 40. You could also include the millimeter unit to avoid any misunderstandings. Then I'm going to go to the thickness and make it 4. And so far we've also made our mullion type. In the next step, we're going to need to also make the type for the glass, as we're going to need it to be 1 centimeter thick. So let's also make the glass. Before which I'm going to draw this curtain wall over here. We're just going to place a piece of it for now. Then we're going to select this. And then we're going to go over here to unpin it first. Then we duplicate its type. And to the name of the duplicate, we're going to add the 1 centimeter thickness. So that's 1 centimeter. Now we're going to fix the value here. And this will be it. Alright, so now I'm going to go over here to edit the curtain wall, and I'm going to assign the glazed 1 centimeter to the curtain panel. And as for the mullions, I'm going to assign that same mullion type that we just made earlier. That was mullion 40 by 40. I'm going to assign that same type both to the vertical and to the horizontal, because basically for these curtain walls or the partitions that we're going to be drawing here, we don't have a fixed amount of distance between them. Each of these partitions have different dimensions, and so for parts like the beginning and the end, and the part in between, which goes for the door, we will need to place some vertical mullions, and because of that, we can't just get an objective pattern for how everything else should be. We can also see that the dimensions differ here. Therefore, you'll have to put the time and place your mullions manually. But on the other hand, for the horizontal mullions, we can do that a lot faster because when we have the door dimensions, we could also adjust the elevation of the horizontal mullions and make it, for example, 240 or even 20. So that's also doable. Now I'm going to zoom in on here and start to draw this. And also don't forget that the point at which you will start placing your curtain walls really depends on what you've established with the rest of the team members who you're working on this project with. So like if I draw from here to here and have the display style unshaded, then we will have something like this. Now this glass panel would have to go between these mullions, so you'll have to select your glaze and then change its offset value to 0. So this way you won't have any offset in comparison to the mullions, and consequently it'll go along with them. Now as for exactly which spot you need to start with, or just generally how you need to place your curtain walls, this needs to be discussed with the client and the other team members. For example, for me it was at the edge of these columns. I had to start from there up to the edge of this column right here. Alright, so now I'm going to continue and place the other curtain walls the same way I did this first one, and then I'm going to have to adjust their elevations, and after that I will have to also adjust the vertical mullions for these curtain walls. But first I'm going to have to draw all the curtain walls I need for this level. We've got one over here, and there's going to be another at this point. And also I will align and reposition them in the right places after I'm finished placing them. We've got another curtain wall here. And there's another one right about here. Which goes all the way to this point. Then another one a little bit ahead of that. All the way here. And another curtain wall starting from this point, going all the way down to this column. And then again another curtain wall which starts at this point and goes all the way down here. And then there's this other curtain wall which goes all the way down and ends at here. Now down here we've also got some other service booths for which we will also draw these curtain walls. So that's it, we've got all the curtain walls we needed. And as for their positioning, again you can go through all that you've drawn and reposition them to make them be exactly in the right places. Just like I am right now, I'm going to move them to make them be in the right positions. And also for this curtain wall, it seems to be in the right place. And we've got another curtain wall over here. So I'm going to have to draw another one in this area. Like so. So now we pretty much got all the curtain walls that we needed, and we're just going over them again to see if they need to be repositioned. Like this one, which I'm going to move a little bit to the left. And that's it. Now let's say that we've got all the curtain walls and we've drawn all the interior partitions. In the next step, I'm going to have to go over to here and up here, and add some grids to the plan. And after that, place the vertical mullions. Therefore, we're going to have to go over to Edit Type and remove the vertical mullions that we've assigned, like so. Alright, and after I've removed those mullions, I will have to manually place some mullions. And in order to do that, obviously we're going to be needing some grids to help us with navigation. For example, I'm going to need to have a grid over here and use it to place a mullion. I'm going to be placing another grid over here and add another mullion. Now after I've placed them, I'm going to have to come back and readjust their dimensions to make them aligned with what the plan demonstrates. So first I'm going to measure the distance from here all the way up to this point and see that it is 1 meter and 85 centimeters. So basically the width of the door is 1 meter and 85. So now I'm going to align this with this line, and then I'm going to go up to the second grid and do the same thing for that one as well. So I'm going to have to move this grid and move it a little bit lower, and that's it. Okay, so now let's go check this out in 3D. And so far this is what we've made for that one part. This is what our curtain wall looks like now. And remember that the curtain walls begin from the FFL. Now if I select this one, I can see that its base constraint is correct and it is at the ground FFL. Its top constraint is also correct because these will have to go all the way up to the upper floor. Only we need to subtract the slab thickness from that, which we already have. So this one is completely correct. Now as for the elevation of the door that's going to be going here, based on what we discussed about this project, was supposed to be 2 meter 40. So now if I go to Edit Type, then I'll see that the vertical mullions are partitioned by 2 meter 40. So that means it's alright. But one thing that really mattered about this partition in particular was that we needed to also consider a space to be for the sign. That's actually the sign that's going to indicate what this area is for. So like if we go over here to this detail, we can see that it's been demonstrated that there needs to be some space for the sign that will have to be installed on the wall. Now what our client specifically told us was that we needed to leave 1 meter and 20 centimeters of space for that sign. Therefore, we're going to go over here back to Revit and first remove that grid. So I'm going to delete this and then I'm going to grab the curtain grid tool, then manually place another grid here instead. And of course, I'm going to adjust its elevation, like this. Now, as for this upper part, we were told to place a solid panel and to name it the Aqua panel. Alright, so that meant that we didn't need to place glass here. And so now we've got two things to do. One is to remove these mullions from here. And the next thing that we need to do is to make this area solid. So like, this panel is going to have to be solidified. And it doesn't have to be of this glaze type. It needs to be solid. Because of that, we're going to have to create a whole new panel family by ourselves, since we don't have such family here by default. So I'm going to have to go over here and create a new solid panel family. And the good news is that it's not going to be very complicated. I'll just have to go over to the metrics and look through these templates and find the one that's for the curtain panels, and here it is, curtain wall panel. After the template is open, I'm going to create a panel in there. So I'm going to have to use the extrusion tool and begin drawing the panel like so. And as for the thickness of this panel, it's going to have to be the same value that your client tells you. So for the thickness of this one, I'm going to put 10 millimeters. And then I'm going to click Finish. And also the equal constraints seem to be working well. So now I'm going to load this into the project. And also it would be good if you named your family something clear and easy to identify. Now I'm going to go over here, unpin this first. And then I'm going to set it to Family 1, which we just made. Now why does it look like this? That's because when we were making this family, we had to also extend it from the top and lock it to this reference plane. and then loaded it into the project. So it should be fixed now, as you can see. So don't forget to always double check in your elevations and lock the top constraints of the families you're making. So always lock them to the reference plane so that you won't face any problems regarding your family's elevation. So this way I was able to draw the interior partition, which, like we said, its dimensions will need to be based on the details and the information that you are given by the client. What matters is how accurately you will be able to apply those information and details on the drawings. So for instance, if they tell you that the glaze needs to be 1 centimeter thick, or if the mullions should be at both ends and all around the doors, then you'll have to know what to do. Or if just like now they tell you that you need to place a solid panel, you should know that you'll need to remove the extra mullions and grids, create a new solid panel family based on the dimensions and requirements, and then place it where it needs to be. Something we're going to be practicing a lot throughout this course is how to perform and apply such details on your projects. It doesn't really matter what kinds of details this project has. The client could have even said that this distance needed to be 1 meter and 10. We're referring to the space needed for the sign and this panel's width. What really matters most is knowing how to apply this kind of stuff, so you'll be able to do that for your own projects with your own given details. So the details for this specific project don't really matter, and what matters is knowing the tricks. Knowing how to make mullions, how to readjust the glaze or glass thicknesses, how to edit the panel, and so on and so forth. Now another thing we're going to need to do for this partition in particular is placing the door, and as you may already know, when we are using some curtain walls in our project, and we need to place a door on one of them, then we will have to replace the curtain walls panels with the door. First, we need to load a curtain wall door and replace the panels of the curtain wall with that door family. Now over here in this plan that they gave to us, the doors in this file, just like we said before, are phase 1 doors. So based on the details that you will be given later, you'll have to readjust and place the curtain wall doors in their places. I'm going to place a simple door for you for now, and in the next videos we will create a whole new curtain wall door, which will have details, a frame, and it will be a phase 2 door that we can place in the project. That's pretty much what we do for all kinds of doors. So now I'm going to go over here to Revit, and I'm going to load a curtain wall door. So I'm just going to have to click over here, and I actually happen to have a folder for 2021 families. As you may already know, with Revit's newer version, we no longer have the families folder, and that's why I'm going to go over to one of my families folders, then go over to the metric families, then to the doors folder, and I'm going to load a curtain wall door. I'm going to take, for example, this one, then load it into the project, or I could take this one instead, which also has a frame. Then I'm going to select this curtain wall panel and replace it with this door family. So I'm going to go ahead and select the door and then place it like so. So this is what it's going to look like, and we can also see what it looks like from the bird's eye view. This will have to be done for all the other partitions with doors, and just basically when the placement of your partitions and their distances aren't based on a specific pattern, then you'll have to place the mullions of each partition manually and just go as far as you can. And if you get to some mullions which are based on a specific standard and are more organized to place, you could readjust their values by going over to the edit type window and place them automatically. But as for the ones which are more random than that, then you'll have to model and place them manually just like we did. And so we've placed all the partitions for this ground floor, and it's all based on the details that we were given.